It's well after the storm. You can see we still have some trees, actually some trees down. Good thing it didn't fall into the flying field. And we've come out to Cow Park for a nice fun fly. It looks like it's going to be a nice day, but days this time of year can be very friendly and very unfriendly all in the same day. And what we have here, we already have the 65 back in Miss Ashley with the Spigot Venturis. We'll probably try to just get a day of testing and seeing how that setup is going to work relative to what we had in it in the past. Well, we had a nice but a very brief, nice little flying session, but we're going to try to run up to Mike Costello's shop, look at some new stuff he's got up there. We'll have the field back, the lines are painted. And I guess even a short day, even a day with trees blown over is better than no day. Look at this. Better than no day at all. Anyway, we're up in Mike's and see what he's got up in his new shop. Tom's still doing some little development work, fine-tuning the Brodak 40s. He has some new stuff he's been testing out. He's got a road jet and he's got a Strega kit. You'll see that soon. And Mike Costello's in a while will be fun. And he's planning on starting his train layout this fall. Now that he's got his shop reorganized. We'll see what he's got. He's even got a ride-on toolbox. He's got all the accoutrements. We're headed up the scenic way to Mike Costello's. I can't say anything bad about Mike because he employs my son-in-law, so I have to kind of say nice things about him. Well, I don't really have to. My son-in-law can find another job. The limo is backing into Costello's house. The stunt limo. This is really a beautifully scenic area. And we come up on Mike's house right up here. And one of the things I always enjoy is seeing people's shops, seeing their things you wouldn't normally see down at the club field. This is Mike's house. One of the houses Mike Kajeski has done an awful lot of work on. These cars out of the shop, you're not going to amount to anything working on these cars. You got to work on airplanes.
That's smart enough to work on a car.
Oh, lose the cars. Check this out. I think this is one of the things Doug Benedetti made. Little tips. You screw it into the ceiling. It's all pipe fittings, of course. And it's kind of ultimately infinitely adjustable. That's Doug's gizmo?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
You have no idea how good it is. It
works perfect.
Have you ever worn a pair of sweatpants or shorts with no pockets in them?
Yep. Yeah, all of a sudden everything's a problem.
This is a pair of pants with a pocket in it.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it now.
And expensive, probably $20 worth of stuff.
I'll make it $4.
Very good.
Look at this.
Very good. Camo man.
Pow wow.
What is this, the Swiss Air Force or something?
Yeah, the pow wow. This is the Swiss Air Force.
So give us the story of this.
Meaning they got all the gold.
They got all the gold.
Neutrality, my foot.
Yeah.
Gold.
Neutrality is when you don't have the gold.
In that box?
Yeah.
Came here in that box.
Oh, to Mike Costello. Gerald Champ. All right. Sweet Home, Oregon. Sweet Home, Alabama. So what's the story with this plane? Give me the story. There's got to be a story.
I don't know much about it. I looked for a plane that approximated the side view of the powwow.
Okay.
That I could throw a camo. And then my friend Rene Berger inspired me to I think I get an extra hug out of Monique. And let us not forget the lovely Monique.
Yeah, lovely Monique. Hey, Monique.
Oh, be still, my beating heart.
Lovely Monique seems to have taken over this video.
Oh, goodness me.
All right, so what happened by the canopy here?
When I took the tape off,
You peeled up some of the paint.
I left the tape on from when Gerald sent it to me. It became taped up.
Now, a good way to get around doing this, you know what Gerald did probably? You can ask him around it. No, what you do, every time you put a coat or two on, move the tape in a 64th of an inch. Then you don't,
I did that.
what happened, it's so thick now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can paint black and make it black up here.
I'm gonna just dust it in with the.
What'd you do, the HVLP to use this, to do the dusting job?
The dusting job I did with this little one.
That's the little HVLP, that's the Jackabone one?
This is the one I bought on eBay for $30.
Oh, okay.
Mike, now where did you get the regulator diaphragm gadget for
This here?
this? Yeah.
At charge. This costs as much as the gun.
Get it?
This was $20.
Is that Campbell Horsfield? You can get a Campbell one.
No, this is Sharp.
Campbell's a little cheaper.
The regulators and all built on the bottom of them.
The one you had was all one piece.
Because I'm using the regulator on the compressor, so I got all
That's
that
not good.
lag. Yeah, it's second rate.
Yeah, you gotta keep walking back.
And this is a Whirlwind water trap.
Okay.
You don't want 20-foot of hose at 5 pounds of pressure. The hose has got to be up and the regulator needs to be ready.
This goes, you use a lot of air.
All right.
So what size compressor? You got the normal size that we all use?
1.5 horsepower with a 20-gallon tank.
Oh, so this is a big one. And how much did that cost?
$300.
Okay.
With a bunch of air tools and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
eBay or did you buy it new?
No, I bought that at
Sears will sell you the same thing, and it comes with the hose and a 3/8 ratchet and a little 1/4-inch ratchet.
Yeah, I got all of these tools with it.
You get a whole selection of air tools with the tank and the.
This has never been opened. Because none of these work on my planes.
Don't even your children want to fill it, do you?
No. These are
But that doesn't mean you'll never need it when Mike's around.
These are the Vilbus finish line guns that Lou August turned me on to.
The big ones.
Yeah.
You can paint a car with this.
We bought those.
These are
We
nice.
bought those in the Harbor Freight store in Tucson.
Take a picture of that label up there. How good are Richard's kits for a squaw?
It's nice, but I'm probably not gonna build it. You want to buy it?
Yeah. Yeah, it says $75 on the box, Mike, but now what is it?
Think it home.
I got that on video.
I'm not gonna build it.
Now you're going to own all of your life.
Let me look around. What else you got for sale today?
Establish a price in coin of the realm.
Yeah. You're gonna owe him a lot.
Thunderbird and a smoothie. Oh, no, if you want to buy it, I'll take money for it.
Now,
I won't build it.
no, but if I
It's a
buy it,
nice kit.
yeah, if I buy it, Mike, it'll sit around and I won't get to it either. I got too many projects.
I changed my mind about it.
I should, yeah.
The way you got this laid out different than the last time I was here. You got the, I don't know what's different, the way you got the benches set up.
I don't know, I cleaned up a little bit. A little bit. This is something I wanted to show you, Wayne. This is that dentist's air compressor that I told you about.
Oh, yeah.
See this tubing from the tank to the automatic switch?
Right.
It broke while I was in the middle of this job I was doing. That was a
Okay.
but I got that from Tom. He had that extra in his shop.
So what do you have, 2 compressors now?
But listen to this.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Do you think that'll power up your Del Air switches?
Oh, yeah. That'll power up my railroad switches. We put that right in the back of the car right now.
You can have that in your house,
Yes, you don't hear it.
and you don't,
Well, Joe Adamusco's got a great idea.
Like
You
a
know,
four-stroke.
you know what he does? He puts the compressor in a different room. Yeah, it just runs hose through the whole garage. Yeah. So the compressor kicks on, it's 3 rooms away, you don't even hear it. That's pretty cool. You got a light switch in here, Tom?
Ooh, look at.
Boy, the pipe company must love you.
Yeah, let
Look
me
at
drag
this.
that out of there.
Ooh, look at this.
Oh,
Look.
my goodness.
Benedetti must be raking in the royalties on these pipe fitting deals.
Holy cow.
I salvaged it.
Ooh, I guess
It's a humongo, huh?
Holy cow, isn't that slick?
I found
What motor goes in there?
LA 46.
LA?
Done by Randy Coverly.
You need a few more planes, Mike.
His fleet is more.
So Peabody busted my chops the other day, I said something about a paint job. He said, well, what plane have you painted yourself? Well, what have I painted myself?
Yeah.
I painted the spacewalker, the
Carrier.
the
carrier ship.
Seagull.
Ballerina.
The ballerina. The stagger wing.
Yeah.
That Avenger.
Yeah.
The Tudor.
The Tudor.
And the Old American. And yeah. So, all right, I bought a couple of planes from Hummel, and this is your old plane.
Yeah.
Now, is this the room where you want to primarily put the train table?
No.
This would be a great room even. This would be big.
Yeah, but it gets real cold in winter. I mean, it gets 50 degrees in here in winter, or even colder, depending on how cold it gets.
So you put in $3,000 worth of train, but not $50 worth of heater.
You gotta realize Mike's priorities in reality, there's not a lot of crossover technology.
A little twisted, I gotta admit.
A $70,000 car, no problem.
Those Sarpolis FA designs,
Yeah.
here's one ready to go.
Needs more airplanes. Mike, you're not gonna live long enough, I got news for you.
Why is that humongous?
Why is this empty, Mike?
We don't fool around when we go for chocolate chip.
Someday I'm gonna document Jimmy and I driving to Texas, the cookie cost was more than the gas. And I'm not sure I didn't eat half of them. They were phoning ahead, watch out for those guys in the black van, they're buying all the Oreos. Oh.
Salty crunchies and
That is a nice looking plane.
Came out nice, huh?
That's cool.
Yeah, that's excellent.
So let me tell you the story of how I painted this. First of all, obviously,
You painted all gray.
all polar gray, the whole plane. And I put a heavier coat on the bottom because I knew I wasn't going to put a second coat on.
Right.
Then, what did I do next? I taped,
So what,
no, I didn't tape.
started at the beginning, Champ built the frame, but
Yeah.
didn't paint it.
Right.
Okay.
So then, after I got done with the polar gray, without taping it, I just shot the white where the white needed to be.
Right.
No
Okay.
tape. Then I taped it up and painted the red. And over here, I used contact paper to make little crosses.
Right.
Then
The camo looks great.
Then I taped off all of this, and now the top is polar gray, right? Then I paint on the olive,
The light green.
Now, I don't like the way it looks, and I decide that, I know what it was, the gray underneath was too wimpy, it wasn't really put on, like it was just a blocker coat, it wasn't put on like a filler, like a final coat. So then I decide, well, I'm gonna put more gray on. I put more gray on. Now the gray overspray is on the olive, and it doesn't look good. So now I say, okay, now I'm going to put sandalwood on. Put the sandalwood over the gray. Now I got sandalwood overspray. No problem. Put the olive back in the gun, do the edges again, and this is the result. And I'm not unpleased.
No, that's the way a real camo job is. It isn't. They didn't mask off camo drives in England even. They were reading.
Now I got pretty sharp edges with that gun. I mean,
What's going to happen when you hit this with clear? This will change.
well, that's what I thought.
It'll blend better. See, it'll be more like this.
I
where
thought
it'll
that
blend.
that's going to melt and be more prominent.
But that looks real good for a camo job. I wouldn't change a thing. That looks fine.
All silk spin?
All silk spin.
So what do? You send the box back to Gerald now, or?
No, the box is going to take something to Tucson for me, maybe
Oh, okay.
once upon.
So you just,
Right now, it's our paint tester. Whenever he's got a paint test, whenever he's got a decal, he's not sure if he can clear over. This is where you stick it and spray.
See if I can melt this
This is the
decal,
failure,
or
see?
yeah,
test my masks to make sure they won't melt.
yeah.
Uh-oh.
Well, so much for that mask.
There's a primer in how to take off,
There's a piece of box missing.
The box just got lighter.
Lousy adhesion.
It's a nice little phone though. That really is a good one.
But this is a decent paint shop. I found this clock in Marshall's for $10. It's got a thermometer and a barometer. I mean,
In Marshall's?
yeah,
You see the pencil lines here even for the cap.
Oh, okay, yeah. You got a humidity meter, very dry.
and see, this is right on with the Radio Shack.
Right, the Radio Shack one is always right though.
Yeah, this one's more correct.
I always use the Radio Shack one when I'm really like doing a bomber or something.
These pieces here, the other pieces for the humongous, and these are for the Aurora.
Make sure the camera's pointed the other way before I did that.
Yes. Don't move. Here's the flaps.
No, it's just, the stabilizer's just stuck in. It's not hinged.
So it's not hinged, it's just stuck in.
You're gonna put it on stands and shoot your clear.
So we need to know, Mike, where's the railroad gonna go?
I'll show you.
Oh, that's in the other.
The railroad is more important than this.
That's the
to me.
other wing.
Anybody can build model planes. You gotta be able to build model planes and have a railroad in the same room.
That's the other wing of Casa Estella.
Casa Estella. I'd put it right in that room and put heat in there.
Now, let you see where he's gonna put it.
Wait, is this all railroad lumber?
Yes, it is.
Railroad lumber?
My wife's cousin gave me that. He tore his whole set apart and sold his house.
You got enough of this wood anyway. That was from a train layout?
That was the shelving for his display.
Oh, so he had a big collection.
He had $275,000 worth of stuff. Oh, I gotta run upstairs to turn on a light.
Auction value.
$35.
I don't know, he got rid of most of it except the big engine.
Okay, so how many feet is this? 32 feet?
From the wood wall to this wall here is 28 feet.
All right, so that should be big enough.
Well, but that's not all though, because I can...
Is this same?
I can put a removable bridge across here and have a shelf. See where the tape is?
Yeah.
I plan to have a shelf.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna get rid of all this stuff. That goes along here, so there's a big place back there, including the depth of those shelves. So you get to here.
You got plenty of square footage, it's just that you gotta figure out exactly where you want
It's gotta be narrow shelves, modular style, with two big loops to return the trains.
Right.
One big loop over there, in that corner, and one big loop either over here or over there.
I'm not so sure you shouldn't cut through this wall, too.
I'll tell you.
Cut through the wall now, don't wait till after you build the
I
layout.
told my wife she can go down to the pond and wash clothes, with a washboard.
Send them out.
And we can put a loop over there.
Another loop.
And I may not live...
Of course, she wasn't in the house when he said it.
I was going to say, Detective Sherlock Hemlock says we have proof that Mrs. Estella is not home.
But I have it on video now, and he has confessed. A full confession.
So this plane,
It is the smoothie you were working
this
on a
airplane is
cockpit.
at least 30 years old that we know of.
For real, 30 years.
30 years old, at least, that we know of.
Wow.
I put a new canopy on it, and I painted it from the inside. I think I told you about
Right.
this before. And that came out great. That's that paint for Lexan cars.
Right.
Gangbusters. It's got tons.
Pearlescent
It's
and...
got tons of flex agent in it.
Right.
I put in the fillets using the Superfill, that blue stuff that Tommy Niebuhr talked about, that seminar that he ran. Carl Holsworth discovered this stuff among our group
Yeah, yeah.
at Aircraft Spruce. And so you make 2 parts of the blue to 1 part of the tan, and it makes nice fillets, and it sands beautifully.
Now, you're going to recover it, of course. You're going to silk or...
The rudder's done. The rudder's done. That's recovered.
Okay.
I'm working my way through the rest of the body.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to finish with the wings.
This will be a nice ship from
And I made a new cowl for it because the old one was toast. It looks nice.
Oh, inverted engine.
I recommend that you go find the fabric store and buy your own, Jim. You don't want to have Estella buy it for you.
You need some fabric?
No, that's a very good answer, Jim. Excellent answer.
Where did I put mine?
It's a good investment to buy your own. This the hinge test?
Yeah, that's the hinge test.
Mike's testing his own hinges. Rather than buying hinges, he's going to use his underwear from now on.
Since his wife won't wash it anymore, he's got to...
Since he will not have as soon as he builds...
I won't have a laundry.
As soon as he builds the railroad, there'll be no laundry, and it'll just be when he runs out of clothes, that's the end of it.
Makes plenty of hinges.
Whoa. Unbelievable.
Sometimes it's good flying as an outdoor sport. You don't have to worry about it whether there's laundry's done or not. We just,
Yeah, we got the whole other music
mixing
and
other
train
airplanes in
stuff and room and this and that.
Estella has quite a tour here. Estella's train's gone wild.
Oh, you got a
big
clip. You got
See the scenes from Caddyshack when Bill Murray's using the blower to clean out his room?
No. You need a snow show. You need a dumpster.
This is the other plane that Gerald sent me.
Okay.
And I brought it up to silver. And now it's going to have B25 silver over that.
Yeah,
And then a wearwood scallop job using Brodak candy paint.
Oh, that's gonna be nice. And what are these? These are all Mike's? Mike's train house engines?
This is a Mike's engine. This is a Williams engine. This is a Lionel engine. This is a Lionel engine. This is Mike's.
And these 2.0?
That's 2.0.
Lionel built the PA, Mike?
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, that's got a nice whistle. This isn't the longest railroad I've ever seen. Oh, the bell's nice.
On Lionel's, when you change direction, the lights go off and they go back on the other side. Can you tell it it's a 2.0? Well, you can set that on the DCS.
Some of Mike's collection. You need more 2.0 stuff, that's the deal. Is this the one you had repainted up here to Erie?
No, that's from Lionel, just like that.
That came from Lionel like that?
Where's my repaint? I think it's put away.
You need more track though, Mike. You'll be bored very soon going back and forth.
Already bored with it.
No kidding.
Where's the Tavio to put up my hung ceiling?
Oh man, you know what? You want to do that ceiling first.
Yeah, I know.
Before you do anything, do the ceiling.
I got somebody that'll move that stuff out of the way for me. And
Let's have a party here, a moving party.
Yeah.
You order a dumpster, me and Kajeski come over, and say goodbye. Toy train said, I didn't even open the cover.
You walk in the door here. There's space for a shelf here. There's obviously this big long area right here. A little kind of a corner thing there.
Just think, if this was somewhere else, you could have an L-shaped, wow.
Yeah, really.
Oh man, you'd be like, unbelievable.
Hey, Mike, is Evelyn's mother upstairs?
Yeah, but what?
But the difference is, this is 8 foot wide. Now the concept is nice.
But it would be the best. In other words, in the long run, the real way to do this would be to move the laundry room. I hate to say it, but that's...
Well,
and in the long run, it would save you money.
That ain't happening. I can tell you that.
Jimmy, you're going to do a little fillet demo. What do you call this material that you're going to use? Is there a super fill? Okay. We'll watch him do a fillet or two before we...
Should I get the lower table so we're not up so high? Well, this isn't bad.
Just the mat, Jim? You put the mat on?
Yeah.
With epoxy or with...
The cowl is with CA, the rest is with nitrate.
Okay. Has neither seen this yet?
No.
So John should have seen it when he was up
He
here.
gets to see a lot of them though.
You didn't have the little dorsal fin on when you had it by the field, the little, you know...
Yeah, I actually think it looked better without it, but it wouldn't be a Falcon if...
No, you gotta make it, you know, it's gotta have all the accoutrements. Yeah, JD, that's cute.
Goes for both of us.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's
Hey, cool.
Notice the color change in the...
Yeah.
Wow, flip-flop paint.
Yeah, you got flip-flop. Let's see if you can get that on the video. He's got a flip-flop windshield that turns green to red.
Not real good under the fluorescence, but outside...
Blue outside.
To teal to whatever.
Yeah. It's like a Brookings paint job. Very cool. JD Falcon. Boy, does this bring back
The
memories.
whole plane, that flip-flop, but some trim.
Trim.
Looks nice
Yeah.
that way.
Or like he's got on the pilot's helmet. You're not going to weigh down a plane by putting a helmet. The pilot looks like he fell out the bottom of the plane here.
I was going for the quarter midget tight fit look.
Oh, that looks all right.
Let me get my plane out of here.
Just gonna swing it around.
JD Falcon.
Here's the goopity goop.
All right, goopity goop.
Oh, is this for me to play with?
That's for you to play with.
This here?
This one here.
I don't think that's a problem. Yeah, we gotta rough it up at all?
I wouldn't think so. I just sickened it.
Okay, should be good.
Mike, when you do this, do you tape the edges of the fillets?
Just the ones, well, on the stabilizer, you can do both sides.
Right.
On the wing, you do the wing.
Right.
Fuselage, because it's a curve, it's kind of too difficult to get a piece of tape.
So you squeegee that and then go in with a scraper?
Squeegee the fuse.
Right.
And just peel the tape back on the wing.
Right. And you go in, after you strike the fillet off, you go in with a scraper and pick it out to get it.
Let's just see how it forms back here. I don't care if we end up with a triangle.
The excess fillet material, what squeezes past the striking tool?
Well, it's on the tape on the wing.
Right.
And on the fuselage, you can usually just, scoop it off.
Not with an X-Acto blade without the handle.
And then after you're done with that, you run your finger along it, dipped in alcohol, and that
Picks the last of it.
Then if there's any trace left over after that, sand's like nothing.
Does it? This stuff?
Sand
This
right
stuff
in
just
all.
carves right off.
All right.
It sands.
Because I have an epoxy light.
It sands like
sand.
light spruce.
Okay.
It sands about like spruce.
Alright.
Really works.
In fact, if you want a little bit of experience sanding it, go sand my smoothie fillets until you're satisfied.
I gotta go. What epoxy material using? Pick that up so I can see the bottom. It always needs to be stirred well, and I would not hesitate to stir that. After you think it's done, stir it plenty more. Because that stuff that's in the bottom, that's what gives it the good physical properties.
All of the paints and epoxies that I have get stored upside down.
Yeah, that's another good trick.
It's a seal too.
Plain newspaper, it blocks the air, and then the heavy stuff is on the jar lid. You can scratch it off, put it back in and stir.
Look, somebody's trying to break in.
This is the EP.
Oh! It's Casamoto of West Caldwell.
These harmful chemicals.
Give me the gun.
Habla Stella.
Yeah, a lot of people that have not realized, even any epoxy that's got filler in it, especially.
DEPA.
Just trying to see, want to get a lump sum or something.
Mike claims this is not critical to
Well, it's not
the mixing ratio, but
you can eyeball it.
Did it sand any different, the batch you mixed up on, or?
Different batches sand different.
you know how you usually know if you're wrong? You run out of hardener and not out of the regular stuff.
Oh, but that's at the end of the rainbow.
And then you blame somebody else that borrowed it from you a week ago.
That's the advantage of quart size, though. I don't think I'm gonna live that long.
That's why Carl shared his with the whole club. And it's about 5 different guys did 2 or 3 planes with it. And that's how we used it up. In fact, it's not even fully used up. What do you think? Good enough?
Looks good, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about right.
A little more blue or?
No, because it's sticking out.
Very so.
Probably enough. Very scientific.
High-tech, huh?
Okay, high-tech guys. So now you play mushy pies. What's the pot life's a half an hour?
About.
Okay, so you got plenty of time.
And it gives you plenty of warning when it's kicking to. It starts to get thick and dense.
Yeah.
It doesn't smoke or anything stupid like that. You still got time to work it and scrape off the edge when it starts to harden and do all your little piddly stuff.
All right, while you're doing that, I'm going to tape. This is a very low-tack kind of a tape. This barely sticks.
It's like drafting tape.
It's not even, it's half the
What's 3M doing with their big tape? It used to be only the blue stuff was drafting tape, and now the everyday stuff is blue, and you can get green. I don't know.
Green, I have Kawasaki green tape.
Is that low tack or
I don't know, there's no two the same. You buy 5 rolls and one is real sticky and one isn't, I don't know.
Only the drafting was blue, so you knew what you had.
Yeah.
Now it's Technicolor.
Yeah, there's nothing to it. It doesn't even, you can't even hold a roll by it.
And at this point, all you're doing is pulling off some dope metallic anyways.
Yeah.
well, but it isn't, I won't pull that off, I'm sure. If it does, you got adhesion problems.
Yeah, you need to know that right away too with this stuff.
All right, so this is just so you don't have to scrape it all off with the little scraper.
Nah, I thought we were starting with the elevator. There is a nasty spot right where the flat filling meets that I think we're going to let go away and fill it, but it misses by.
So you're just doing peanut butter here. Why don't you just grab it, put a rubber glove on and put it on with your bare hands? Got any rubber gloves?
Yeah, I do. I didn't think
Put a rubber glove on. Well, that's why they pay me the big money. That's why my layout's done and yours is a tape on the floor.
Mine's still a dream.
Ah, but it's a good dream. It's a good dream, my boy.
Yeah, but you gotta put it in and move to Tampa, right? What the heck is
I'm not gonna move to Tampa. I'm gonna...
So I'll keep the trains well lubricated. While you're there, leave me the key to the train room.
Should I do this? I'll start on this side?
You can if you wish.
Is this going to affect the builder to fillet rule here, or something that you're going to see on Stuka's stunt?
Hold on.
The Brian Kiefer rule will be enforced again?
Yes.
Forgot to tape that fillet. My half-air prop comes into play.
You make this a lot harder than it has to be, Mike.
You develop a technique, whether it's...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. My airplane would have apologized to me for
speed up my work here, I would have been pissed.
Very delicate.
No, I'll follow that up when I put in the rest of the job.
I like Benedetti's idea of the ball bearing with a thing soldered to it.
That is a great idea.
I gotta get him to make me one.
Yeah, you need somebody that knows torch to do that.
There's probably a lot of ball bearings extra laying around where he works, too.
He finds a lot of stuff for free like that.
Can't figure out where to use them.
But even if you use a marble and you glue a piece of tubing to it with CA or JB Weld, who cares?
Okay. I'm going to use this half-A prop. Might have mixed too much stuff.
That's why I started putting some on, so you can smooth and I'll just keep ladling.
Is this a fat enough fillet, or you want me to use the big prop?
That looks fine.
Jimmy's having more fun than you, Mike.
I should have put the tape...
The two-man tag team fillet team here.
I was sitting and looking at it for a week when he offered to help. I said, good.
Yeah.
Something will happen.
Yeah.
I just had a couple of good experiences with it, and so I figured...
No, you did the profile. It really came out well, so...
See, the thing like that's happening though, Jim, when you move the stick like that, if you have the ball bearing, the diameter never changes. That's the advantage of having a marble or a ball bearing. Yeah, it's looking like it's going to make a fillet. It's just a little more work than... The other thing too, the ball is good for around the front. It's always hard when you have a prop to get it around the front even.
I always resort to my fingers. I use the wood for just so long, or whatever tool I've got, and then I just...
Spit on your fingers and rub it in, Mike.
We're getting to that. I'm working my way up to that, I can tell you. I'm getting frustrated.
Rubber glove is good though. I've had good luck with a rubber glove. There we go. And the name of the stuff is, let's see if we can...
Superfill.
Superfill. Call Mike Costello, he'll have plenty left for the rest of his life.
That's Jimmy.
Or Jimmy. Hurry up, M-E-K before curing occurs. Cures at 7 degrees or above. nice fillet demo yesterday. I hope some of the information is of value, but I like the idea of using a marble with a stick glued to it. I think that really is the ultimate way, and I really think aeropoxy light is the best material I've found. But let's certainly look at all the possibilities. Now, an important tip, the reason I'm taping this, I got out here early this morning with Brian. Brian unfortunately had his car parked by work, and somebody broke into the car and stole his toolbox. So last night we tried to put together a bunch of extra stuff I had so he could go flying when I had to work. And we put together a stooge, well, he put together a stooge, and where's the stooge? The problem is the angle that it wound up at is less than 90 degrees. So when I got here and he went to release the plane, I stood there, the tails start walking up the stooge because it's on an angle facing down. And so I think we just saved him either a broken prop or a release or something by getting out here early. And I would, here's the tip, anytime you try a new stooge the first time, have somebody standing there with their hands right by it. What was happening, see mine I have, the rubber parts are glued to the dowels, this one they're just laying there. And that really is, not the best way to do it. Now the day before, yesterday, we went down a field with the spigot Venturi and it was running way too tight on fuel. In fact, it was running out of fuel in the last couple maneuvers. So I put back the 210 standard Venturi, and the wind is already howling, but we're going to just try to get a couple days of flying and then get back to the shop, and if we find anything else amazing, we'll just try to pass it on. Now, we all know and love Brian Manow. He's the star of Windy Videos coast to coast, but you never get to see his house. Well, here's his house, here's his birds, and this is what he does for a living, fix Windy's car. We got a flat tire from these idiot contractors. My tire picked up a nail. And to add insult to injury, we broke the cowl mount. For about the 200th time, the cowl mount's broken. I'm going to come up with something better to permanently fix that so we can still continue flying it. Ooh, I hear it leaking. Woo! Hey, nice birds. How many you got anyway? 6. Chicky would be jealous.
See the light blue one right over here?
They don't fight?
No. I think we got an even combination of male and female. That light blue one was laying eggs left and right until we put her in a cage with all the other ones. Everything stopped.
All that wild nightlife stopped, huh? Very cool. Now today, our goal was to, you can see what happened to the cowl mount. It pulled right out. And the reason this pulls out is the wood that's in here is oil soaked. It's no more complicated than that. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to come up with a little bit better system. Instead of having the bolts in compression being that we're pinching the cowling down, which always seems to somehow not work out well in this application. We want to put a little tab on the bottom belly pan and run the screws in through the side, so there'll be less stress on the screws. I just think that'll be a little bit better way of doing it, I hope. Again, I want to do a little bit of work on the belly pan, maybe touch up the paint as one of the things I want to do, but most of all, I got to get a more reliable cowl mount, and it's something that, because the fuselage is wood, it absorbs oil. When it absorbs oil, the glue joints start to fail after 2 or 3 years. And of course, there are other glue joints that are tentatively in danger of failing too, in any wood airplane, as time goes by. So we want to try to come up with a better fix for this, a permanent fix, I hope, so that we're not going to have this trouble in the future life of this plane. Things I want to do anytime I do a repair. And you can see what's happened in here. This is kind of just rotted away from, and it's basically because the part is carbon fiber, but the little tabs that I made to mount the cowl were wood. Well, maybe what I should have done is make them out of carbon fiber, but that's too late now. But the first thing is, now,
We always use Sickens M600, but we can't buy it locally anymore. So Les came up with this product that a paint store named Gavin's makes that seems to be a great substitute for M600. And the first thing to do, because we're going to try to touch up paint and we're going to do a complete repair on this, anytime you're going to do a repair, get all the grease off everything you possibly can so that you're working with hopefully clean parts by the time we finish this. There's a lot of spots on here where the paint has deteriorated for a lot of reasons. This is the part of the plane that takes the most abuse. When it's being transported, it sits on this part of the plane. And from taking it on and off and on and off and on and off, it just takes a complete beating. So, because we're really near the end of the flying season here, I don't know how many more days we're going to have left, but we were doing some little experiments with Venturis and things, and it's good to kind of take the end of the season up, try to get ready for next year, any little things we can find. But step one, and I like to wear, now you can see, I can wear rubber gloves, you can see how little paint is on this now. As we degrease it, it's already turning the towel red. Now what I'll do is, the first step, I'll get in there and grind out all the old pipe mount. Grind this area clean and get right down to the raw carbon. Trying to do this by the vacuum bench so I don't get dust in here. All of the old material just to get rid of some weight, and I'm going to move the mount further up. Now what I want to do is, using 64th plywood, put little C-sections. What's wrong with these little things is they pull on too much of a point. If you could spread this load out, it would be a lot better. Well, what I want to do is make this piece about 1 inch wide and laminate in one lamination at a time of 64th plywood until I have enough to get a blind nut through. I've cleaned and roughened this up with some 80 grit paper and a Dremel tool. And then the last thing is I need to set the clearance between the side, and you can see how the paint has already been peeling off of this. So maybe what we'll do is we'll just sand this whole piece down and repaint it. But again, this piece, can you imagine if this piece was made out of balsa wood, the condition it's in now? The only reason it's in as good a condition as in is because it's carbon fiber. How bad the paint was when I pulled off the painter's tape, it just pulled the paint right up off of this. So we're probably going to have to sand this whole thing down and do a complete refinish on it. But again, because it's carbon fiber, there's no oil to deal with, we should have no problem at all repainting this. 64th plywood, 2 grains are going in one direction, the center grain goes in the opposite direction. It's 3-ply. So in this dimension, it's easy to bend, and we should be able to bend a 1 inch strip and laminate them together with that bend already in them, almost like a molded part. If we were to try to do it this way, you'd probably crack the wood. It wouldn't hold the shape. But you'll have less strength if you do it this way. But we'll just add a couple extra laminations to it. And I'll start by cutting up a whole bunch of strips. And unfortunately, it's the one part of this plane that I've really been unsatisfied with. This has broken several times before, and it's annoying. It doesn't keep you from flying a plane because you can always put a rubber band around it, but when I originally made this wood fuselage, the carbon fiber one was the one I was going to use. This was kind of a backup thing. I never realized I'd get this much use out of it. So, shame on me. Learn a lesson. Now see, because this, we can bend this right in here, and the part that sticks up, I want to make a little piece to hold this so that these, well, let me laminate the first one in there first. Okay, the first U-shaped piece is in place, and now I'm just going to put a piece of tape up here to hold a 90 degree, otherwise I'm going to be building a piece with too much curve in it. The tape can give me the 90 degree angle that I like. I just need to, I can adjust it infinitely, in fact. Needs to be a little shorter. Obviously we'll trim this to the final fit. And having a little bit
better cowl mount is something I want to have for all the new planes. Okay, now I need to get another piece, laminate another piece right inside of this. I have this piece loose in here. I guess you can see how that is. And what I'll do is just line up, I want to line up the 90-degree part, tack this in, and of course I'll soak all these joints ultimately, but I just want to get them tacked in place. And it's amazing how one little, see, this is why I wear rubber gloves. That would have been skin. Because I'm sloppy. But you know the glue is getting everywhere, and you know it's nice fresh glue when it does that to your gloves. Now what I did, I put a few extra laminations up here because I want the thickness of a blind nut, a 440 blind nut, and I'll be able to sand this in. So we have like 5 or 6 laminations here, and we've created kind of a horseshoe. Now I want to figure the depth that this is going to go into the fuselage, and I'll measure that up to the tank floor, and then I'm going to sand this flat so that the fuselage side butts right up against there, and then I'll drill a hole with this in place. And then obviously we'll sand it down and refinish it. And we want to figure out exactly how much of a tab to drop in there. This is going to go forward. It's going to be about 7/10 on both sides. 7/10. That's the amount we have to cut off to make a 7/10 tab. Now we have the tabs, what we hope is close to being the right length. Now we need to set the clearance, the side-to-side clearance on this. I need to sand some of that tab away so that this moves out further and keeps this alignment with the body side. So it'll just be a question of one by one sanding off. I can do it with a sanding block until that cowl walks out into the position we want it. The clearance is set. Whoa! As he flies away. I'm trying to sand down and get a relatively nice horseshoe shape here. Now what's important is I need to bolt this piece on with the back bolt. The reason for bolting it on with the back bolt, that lines up these two holes, and then when I drill, I'll drill through the fuse side and this part all at the same time. Before I go any further, I want to make sure everything is sealed with thin CA. All the edges of the laminate, actually I'll seal the whole thing. Where this weight is in the airplane, it's not critical. If we were doing something by the tail, I'd be worried that every little tiny bit of weight would matter. This is almost right on the CG. And boy, I hope this holds. If it doesn't hold, we're going to have a new video, Wendy commits suicide. I remember Danny Banjock's plane, Nat's official flight, pulls up in front of the judges and a cowl falls off. Boy, oh boy, frustrating. And Danny, of course, one of the really good builders, top builders, whatever you want to call it, but hey, we're all prone to, what happens, we're all prone to make these engineering errors, and we're always trying to make the planes lighter and lighter. I am, of course. And sometimes you just look at something that should be solid and make it light. Now, make it too light. What I did, as a matter of course here, just in case this ever delaminates from this part, I'll be able to put one screw in, or a safety screw, just to hold it in place. Now, if I were building this and this were a new piece, I would put a screw in from the outside and then bury it in the paint, but I'm not going to bother doing that right now. All right, this is ready for the final fit. Now, while that screw is holding in place, and I've got the clearance close, I'm going to hold this down in position. And then I'm going to drill through this side, hopefully be able to catch that right at the right spot for the blind nut. So I want to drill this through with just the right size that a 440 bolt will be a tight fit. But we still, because the front cowl mount, the original thing that happened is the front cowl mount, that little lip broke, and then that puts stress on this, and you can see we've stressed the part. But this has been a constant pain in the neck, and I'm actually glad on a day like today that I can get this, just get it squared away, hopefully for the future of the plane. But by drilling the part right in place, that the tail screw holds it in place, I should have real good alignment for the 3 bolts that are going to ultimately hold this down. Anytime we're going to install a blind nut, couple of tricks. I put a drop of chain lube on each bolt. The idea of this is to get some grease or oil in the threads. This way, if the CA seeps into the threads, you don't have to re-tap it, which is kind of a pain. We also got a 135 drill, which is the diameter of the outside of the blind nut, so we can get a real idea. These are the spot holes, so we know where this should go. And this should be a relatively precision fit now. Let's hope we're right. Yeah, it sits right in there. And once we get the cowl in place, the blind nut will push that and it'll suck it in tight, and then we'll glue it. This way, if the blind nut is on a little bit of an angle up or down, the bolt will set the blind nut where we want it to be. Otherwise, every time you go to catch the bolt, it'll be on an angle. Now we just need to do a little test fit with all 3 of the bolts. And we'll put a drop of CA on all these blind nuts. And we'll be ready to refinish this. Always a fun job, by the way. Now the last step, of course, now that we know this all fits nice and tight, we'll shorten the screws, so I don't want that extra weight of the screw. And of course we're using aluminum screws. This worked out pretty well, but now again, the hard part is the refinishing. I'll shorten these screws to about half the length. So what I do is hold this. You can, if you were worried about it, you could put a nut on the threads and so it could walk back off the threads, but if you use a parting wheel and you don't slip, you'll always get a pretty nice cut. And once I have these, then I try to dress them off. Again, I just use a fake blind nut, one that I'm not going to use, just to make sure the ends of the threads are okay. A drop of grease or oil on here just keeps the threads from getting any CA or anything while we're doing the final gluing on the blind nuts. Now I'm not sure exactly how I want to do this yet, but because it's carbon fiber, I can just do it underwater, and I'll do the final sanding with the little M600 substitute that we have as a test. But because it's a carbon part, we don't have to worry about the water getting in and swelling the grain. Where the paint usually deteriorates is right along the edge from not having enough of a radius, I guess. But I'll just sand as much of this as I can down. And I'll look to re-primer it. And if this were a wood part, I'd only use the M600. As soon as I see I'm into silver, that's it. And it's amazing how much of a beating this part has taken over the years, a couple of years that we've flown the model. But it was just a poor choice of cowl mounting, I think, that doomed this part. Had we had a better cowl mount, and I think the next plane that we do this kind of a bottom mount on, I think we're not only going to have a much more sturdy mounting system, but one of the things I want to incorporate, I just want to have this, maybe 2 or 3 of these, just a better system that if one bolt fails, it's not so vulnerable. I just underestimated how much of a beating this takes. Like, again, the plane, people pick it up when they go to pick up your plane after a flight and they grab it and squeeze it. Well, you know, not everybody that flies in my circle of friends here is exactly aware of how much strength they can put into it. After looking at how this part, the paint came off it, what I surmise is,
everywhere that we've had trouble with the paint really deteriorating, what's happened is it's the heat of the pipe. Right up here, this front part, if you mask this out, this is where the pipe actually heats things up. And you can see where that heat would be coming from. Well, I think that's half of the problem. So another thing I'm going to think about is maybe leaving a little more clearance on the next design or the next model or whatever you want to call it. But we're ready for primer. And the next thing is this is our M600 substitute. Just get this, and believe it or not, it's not even raining out there for the first time in a week. So we're going to try to take advantage of the fact we have a little weather. Maybe get the primer on this, let it dry. Again, where all this deteriorated is where this part really gets hot, and a wood part would get even hotter. The wood part would have confined the air, so the cooling air, you wouldn't have as much cooling air. But you never can clean this too much. I did the final sanding with 600, and we'll be ready for the first coat of primer, and maybe it'll need 2 coats, 3 coats, I don't know. But everything should be scuffed up, dull, scuffed up before we actually put any paint on. I'm just trying to get a little bit of primer around, look at this, right around the edges first, all of the edges to seal up. I'll kind of let that dry up, and then I'll put a coat of primer on the whole part. All of the bad spots I'd like to have 2 coats of primer on. Anything that doesn't look so good. All of the edges. Then I'll thin out the primer for the second coat. You can put a little retarder in it, it wouldn't hurt. Again, from the heat, this paint really takes a beating up in the nose here. I really need more clearance on that. We'll let that dry, and then we'll put a full coat on. A full coat of Rodak primer on this, and we're just going to let it sit. It's going to sit probably overnight, depending on the weather. What we're going to do here is beat the rain, but I don't think we're going to win this game. It looks like it's going to rain any minute, in fact. So what I'm doing, I'm putting on a coat of silver, and that may be all I can get done today. If it doesn't rain, we may get the red on, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. And one of the things that I like about the carbon fiber parts, cowls especially, the refinishing is not a nightmare. If you've ever tried to refinish a wood cowling, I can bet you haven't forgotten the experience. At best, it's a pain. And we're going to be working on, I hope, today or tomorrow, we're going to be working on this, Bill Hummel's got the thing in the mail already for the Strager cowl. You notice we put this under the umbrella because I think it's going to rain any minute here. I'm not so sure. But while that's cooking along, we'll go in and I saw a package from Bill Hummel. We'll see if the cowl plug is in there. We'll pour up the mold for that. While our beautiful silver is drying up, this is the plug that Bill Hummel sent me to make up the Strager cowl mold, and what we're going to do, you've all seen this before, we're going to build a box around it with balsa wood, and we're going to fill it with molding rubber. A relatively easy project. Now let's pretend so that
pretend this is your custom plane. This is not some generic plane. This is the custom, one-of-a-kind Michael Ferguson special. So you have this cowl made. Now, in the time it takes you to hollow this out, believe me, you can make this mold and make the part out of composite. The other thing is, you saw the part we just did, the part we're working on today, how easy it is to refinish. It's not soaked with oil. It's easy to repair. When you make a wood part, the problem is it's oil soaked. Now, these are going to be available very soon. The reason we don't have them available today, we want to make a couple of test parts, send them up to Bill, make sure they fit on the fuselage that he's building. So the first step on this is going to be to make up the little box for the rubber mold. Now, if you remember, we made these little boat molds, and we've done many of these. This is a thing for Arnie Haber's Lionel train thing. We've made him a bunch of those. But we need to find a place on the, and I think we're just going to have enough room here out at the corner. This is a piece of plexiglass, but anything will work as a base plate. So the first step is we're just going to tack glue this in place and then build our little box around the outside of it. The thing about this is it goes very quickly. And you could, like I said, you could make that fiberglass part or composite part. If you wanted to use carbon, you could, of course. You can make the mold and that part quicker than hollowing this out and putting in all the stuff, I think, anyway. Okay, build it a nice job. Just a couple drops of CA in each corner, and we'll build a box with scrap balsa. Nice thing is you can use up scrap wood on a project like this. Going to need two pieces that length, and they can be a little bit oversized, need not be even fancy, but you do want to cut these at a 90-degree angle. We're having everything at 90 degrees, the box will be just a little neater in appearance, even though we don't really care. That's not one of the things we're going to try to make is a fancy box. What we want is a functional mold. Now, Bill's put kind of a nice finish on this, and again, the quality of the finish is important, but you don't have to make yourself crazy over it, that's for sure. I'm trying to fit these pieces in. Again, I leave an overlap on each side. All we're really doing is making a box. And I've seen much more sophisticated ways of doing this with interlocking pieces that they sell commercially, but for our purposes, for a hobby application, this is certainly going to be fine. Once the box is made, and again, this goes very quick, and you can use up scrap material again. Has a lot of desirable features. One of the things we're going to do, and I just emailed Larry Cunningham today, he's making some kind of composite parts. Mold Max 30 is the material that we've had the best luck with. It's relatively inexpensive. I like to keep these kind of square if I can. But again, the nice thing is none of this stuff is critical. Once that little box is made, we're ready to mix rubber. Important that it's sealed. You don't want the rubber leaking out, and then you'll just have either a sloppy mold or it'll look terrible. Okay, so we have a box. We're ready to mix molding rubber. This is the material we really have had the best luck with. It's available from Smooth On. Let's get their phone number up here. 610-252-5800. The company's called Smooth On. Of course, they have a website, smoothon.com. The nice thing about this material, I think it's perfect for our application. It's extremely easy to use. It's not really toxic. It doesn't even have any bad odors. I mixed. Mold Max, the kicker, 10-1. Carefully, it's got to be done on a gram scale. And now the trick. The trick is to mix it slowly, at minimum 4 or 5 minutes. But when you think it's totally homogenized, look at your watch and mix it 2 minutes more. And the way I'm mixing it, nice and slow, digging up the bottom, because you don't want to get to the end of the pour and then some of it is not catalyzed. So this is going to take about 7 minutes. I'll just let this homogenize, I guess is the right word. And then we're going to very carefully, once this is homogenized, see if you mix it too fast or with an electric drill or something, you get all air bubbles. We're trying to mix it nice and slow so we avoid having any air bubbles.
And then this would have to, once we pour the mold, this will sit overnight, and tomorrow we'll be able to make up a test piece for Bill. And that's about the consistency of, it's a good idea to wear rubber gloves because it is sloppy, but it has no bad smell, and very easy to mix, very easy to use. Now you can see, even if you mix it slowly, you always have some air bubbles. So what you try to do, and this is the whole trick, when people have a problem with mold and rubber, this is usually a problem that they haven't solved right away. Pour it nice and slow. Try to pour it in the corners, on the edges. The idea is to get no air bubbles near the part, to have a complete, the shell that goes around the plug itself, not to have any air bubbles. Now you can see you have plenty of air bubbles. There's no way to mix this without making air bubbles that I know of. A lot of things you can do. You can use a vibrator. You can use a, George used to use a saber saw and just hold the saber saw on here to get rid of some of the air bubbles. But the only practical way that I know of is pour half of it. Make sure it gets in all the corners. Break as many of the air bubbles as you possibly can. See, they're all coming up to the surface now. If it's winter time, put this up by the heat in your house because it's going to take heat. Heat is going to make it kick, because right here we have an air conditioner running and it's still 78 degrees in here. So this is going to kick off overnight, but heat is your friend. Once you get this poured, it'll be semi-hard in a matter of an hour or two, and it'll totally cure in 24 hours, so we actually won't be able to work on it again till tomorrow. But the best thing is just let that first half sit like that. Now another thing, and I'll try this just as a demonstration, put a little bit of heat on it, and you'll see the heat will bring the bubbles right to the surface. It'll actually even break some of the bubbles. You don't want to overdo it, but you do want to get all those bubbles to break. And you don't want to trap them down in the bottom of the mold if you can help it. See, now it's laying out nice and flat. Actually, the way this is working out, this is going to be a good pour. That looks real good. Now we'll put the rest, or build this up as high as we can. We want to cover the highest part of the mold by at least 1/4 inch. If it's less than that, then the mold just gets a little unstable. If you find you have a little leak somewhere on this, you can just take a piece of duct tape and go over it. It looks like we've mixed enough. This is 460 grams of rubber. Now right here, if you were to find a piece of molding rubber that's not homogenized, and it would be like marbleized, it would be white and blue. Right now you could, this looks like a good mix, but a lot of times you have a part that's not real neat. And so what you can do then is just do this and stir it up. Again, when we put this to dry overnight, just in time. How do you like that phone call? Just in the nick of time. Now we'll pull this apart tomorrow. That's going to basically sit overnight. Another thought, see a little bit dripping out here. If it's no more than this, I'm not going to worry about it. But if all of a sudden you had a giant leak, a couple drops coming out isn't going to make any difference. And that will be in 24 hours. That should be a, if it was winter, we'd put it up by a heating vent, but for right now it can just sit here in the open. That'll be fine, and tomorrow we'll have a cowl mold. Meanwhile today, we'll see, we might even get another coat of paint on that Miss Ashley Cowling, but we'll see if it's raining yet, and if we can get a coat of red on it. Boy, that'd be nice if we could. In one day, now imagine this, we're going in one day from raw carbon to, to red in one day. Oh, with that cowl, the mold poured, and go out and check if this is dry, and it should be. And we can get some, get the red on it today. Boy, this is going to be a fast finish. I always try to test the gun inside like this, make sure it's spraying okay. In this case it looks okay. This Ashley red is a really nice color when it's applied, I think, over silver, white, gold.
You can change the color incrementally by putting it over a different base. You can actually put it over black and make it kind of a maroon color. The trick is not to spray it way too thick. Put on 2 thin coats a lot better than 1 thick coat. I think you can get it a lot more evenly distributed that way. Boy, it's a bright red. I don't know of any red that's brighter. Except this year when we do the Testarossa, we have the Testarossa paint, of course. That is real Ferrari paint. We're going to mix that with Brodak Clear, and we're going to hopefully have a really vibrant color. Much like a real, if you've never seen a real Ferrari red, it's a very vibrant red. So this basically went from the raw sanded, we took most of the primer off, some of the primer, to where I guess it's safe to say it's red already. And if it didn't look like it was going to rain, I'd even try tonight before I went to bed putting a coat of clear on, but I don't think that's going to be necessary. Well, that'll sit for a while, and maybe or maybe not we'll get some clear on it today. Can't tell because, again, it looks like it could rain any minute. That's why we're storing it under our wonderful umbrella here. But that's a one-day finish, and that's being able to repair things and get them back into service in one day. That's a real asset. If that were wood and you had a silk span it, and it'd be a long time before you had that part ready, or if you had to recarve it. We've been following the progress of my next door neighbor Mike's house. They're doing a primer today. They've been over there with 10,000 sanded. They've sanded that house down to bare wood. You believe this? Unbelievable job. We got a great little set of pictures here today while we're waiting for our red to dry up and to see if it's going to rain. These are from Roger Olson in San Antonio, Texas. Anyway, just had to replace a battery there. This is from Roger Olson, San Antonio, Texas. And it's a little set of pictures. We'll pass these on to Stunt News, of course. Glassing the fuselage, half-ounce Clair. Finishing epoxy, found finishing epoxy from Bob Smith Industries. Required thinner with 30% acetone to get a smooth application. And of course we did ours. West resin is another way of doing it. This is a Brodak Cardinal, of course. Ring is sanded, center section glassed, ready for ultra coat. Photo 3, that looks pretty nice, by the way. Photo 3, bare bones test, fit of all components. Now I'm getting excited. Photo 4, same as photo 3. 4A, coating wing. Prefer ultra coat to monocoat, but here's at lower temperatures, seems to handle compound curves better. Wing and stab, covered with white ultra coat, dry fitting once again. Fuselage received 2 coats, polyacrylic with cornstarch added, sands out smooth, followed by 2 coats of run-of-the-mill gray auto primer. I think this is where the ship started to get heavy. Yeah, you're probably right. Auto primer is extremely heavy. A good choice might be Brodak primer. 6 and 7, the same as number 5. He's showing it in auto primer. Now he's showing, and it's hard to see from the picture. I'm going to put the picture up here. Paint scheme created in AutoCAD, printed on white drafting paper. Spray adhesive used to temporarily stick contact shelf paper. Cut through the AutoCAD print and shelf paper and create a paint mask. And here's the paint mask. Miss Jamie, how cool. Michael loved this when I showed this to Kajeski. Miss Jamie, my wife, was added much later on the outboard wing.
can barely be seen in photo 14 of me holding the ship. Like I said, there are plenty of things to do differently next time. And I'll make a suggestion that when you make it, make a thicker font so it stands out more. Number 10. Used rattle can Rust-Oleum over Ultra Coat. Never again. Doesn't go down smooth. A long time to cure. Cheap paint, cheap finish. That's what we like to hear. Had problems with adhering to Ultra Coat. Only dope from now on. Now, I gotta tell you, this is why it's helpful to have videos and stunt news. And we will pass these all on to stunt news. Just for this reason. When you find something that happens and you've had a problem, why not save everybody else? Finished wing ready to install. Wing installed, cut diamonds out of Ultra Coat along center line to provide adhesion contact area. Believe it or not, used Gorilla Glue initially, worked okay, but expanded out into the wing surface was not easy to remove. Filled other gaps between fuse and wing with baking soda and CA, which worked great. Looks like a chipmunk. That's funny, a chipmunk. Actually, it looks pretty good. Morning of the first flight. Oh no, there's one more, I skipped one. Morning of the first flight. Terrific. Morning of the first flight. Terrific right off the bench. Although I'm sure yet can't identify many trimming requirements. Nevertheless, I love the way it flies. Thank you, Wendy. And he said, shortly after, now I'm making this caption up, shortly after this picture was taken, Hugh Hefner called him to pose for Playgirl magazine. Anyway, hey, Roger, we really appreciate the photos. I will for sure send you a copy of the videos to have for your, see, to Miss Jamie Hardly Shows. Have for your little video library. And one of the sad things is I don't know if this will appear in the next stunt news or the one after, but I'll write a little introduction for this and hope that Tom can use the photos. And thanks a lot, and I hope you've enjoyed sharing a couple of shop days with us here in Wendy's cellar. And you're absolutely right. I think dope is the way to go if you want to keep it light. Anyway, thanks a lot, and we hope to hear from you again. Hope we get to see some pictures of your other projects too. That's a nice little plane, and I'm sure Brodeck has sold 1,000 of these kits, and they all seem to fly good. Roger Olson, thanks again. Got off the phone with Kevin King from Canada. Kevin is building a Cardinal and it's already in silver. He's getting ready to do a paint job very much like Dave Midgley's, and we've all seen pictures of his Tsunami. It's pretty special. Look forward to seeing some pictures from Kevin King in the near future. Well, I'm glad we got at least one coat sprayed on that bottom block. What a crappy day, and boy, is it raining. It's really beautiful out there now. Rain, rain, go. We beat the rain. I love it when we beat the rain. Anyway, this was a pretty good end to a pretty good day. And we got a lot of little projects to work on tomorrow, and I think Les Demmett's stopping by with some cool stuff too. Well, if we were getting ready to go to the Nats, we could go out to the garage and paint in the garage and put retarder in the paint, but then the retarder is going to be a problem. That's going to take a longer time to dry. So I think we're just going to sit this one out before we put the rest of the clear on that part. Just let it dry a couple days. Well, this summer has been the summer from rain, I guess. I don't know. It's just been miserable. We really, really had the world's record on rain. Karen has her beautiful roses that her kids bought her. We celebrate Karen's birthday 2 days later than it actually is. And this weekend we're going to have a nice, I hope, a nice Rosh Hashanah and birthday party all combined as one.
This is our favorite doll of Karen's collection. We call her Big Dolly. She's 48 inches. Well, the doll I bought Karen for her birthday this year, and we haven't received them yet. We're not going to receive it for another week. It's coming from the Home Shopping Network. It's 45 inches, so maybe we'll have a pair of these girls. Very nice. Love these dolls all over the house. Yeah, with all the rain and everything, we're just going to let that dry for a day before we put any more clear on it. Again, we could be rushing it, but there's really no rush. We're getting into the part of the year where we're not going to have a lot of flying time left this year, but we are really excited about getting some of these projects with the building started. I know Les is itching to build too. Anyway, while I was putting a little bit of the clear on, remember up on the nose right around here, there was a couple of bad spots. I touched this up and just hit it with the spray gun with the clear. Just put a little bit of dusting of clear on. Now what happens when you put a little dusting of clear on, where it dries on the edge, it'll usually look like this, and we'll have to buff this off, of course. But where this was all chewed up on the side now, it's got 2 or 3 nice coats of clear. That should be a big help on preserving the life of the plane. I don't want this... The plane has been such a good friend. I just want him to be get as many years out of this as I can. And when I can, I think one of the projects in our near future, or maybe over this winter, is going to be to make a replacement carbon body. It'll certainly lighten the plane up a little bit, and this body is just... The only unreliable part of the plane is that the body is absorbing oil and cowl mounts are breaking and things like that, but certainly nothing that we can't live with. And we're just fans of Miss Ashley. I guess that's all the bottom line is. The first time I ever saw Miss Ashley, I just really loved it. I thought it was just a special plane. And I have pictures of it all over the shop, and I still think it's a special plane. Today, once this rubber hardens up, and if you've done a good mixing job, as I suggested, it'll dry very reliably. You can pull a balsa wood off, and when we're all done, if a couple parts really stick, which looks like the case, you can just get a blade in between there. Since we have plenty of clearance between it won't matter if we pull off a little bit of extra material. But basically, we don't want to destroy the integrity of the mold if possible. Just pulling all this off. Doesn't want to come off, just slide a brand new blade in there. See, the thing with the molding rubber is it picks up, if you look at this, it picks up every little grain in the wood. Very, very good at picking up little details. Get your finger in there, you usually can just do something similar to that. Now, it's important we save the plug, because what happens if we ever have a problem with the mold wearing out, and that happens. If you don't use mold release, look at that, nice, that is perfect. If you don't use mold release, you'll wind up with about 30 parts, and they'll start to stick. If you use mold release, you'll probably get 200 or 300, but eventually it just pulls all the whatever it is that's in the rubber that allows this to release. That's a nice pull. And we want to save the plug, of course. We don't want to lose the plug. We're ready to lay up our test piece. Of course, the things we always do. I put a little bit of the silicone mold release agent in here to smooth on silicone mold release. You just spray it on. I also, even because the reason is I want to make hundreds of parts out of this mold. I don't want to make just 1 or 2 parts. The other thing is I cut all the material up ahead of time. I have that ready. And I'm using West Systems resin with 205 hardener, so we should be able to pull this piece out at the end of the shop day and take a look at what we have. Mold release agent we use. And it really isn't super important to do it in the beginning, but as the mold gets older and older, it's a good idea to do it. Our original Nobler mold is still making cowlings in the Cardinal mold. Try to do this with two layers of 4-ounce cloth. Again, every time I do a layup, a test layup, I'll try it with I start cowls with 2 layers of 4-ounce. Then if they need reinforcing, in this case this may need a little reinforcing up here, but we'll see. So having the material cut, now I have to mix my filler material, which I'll need right up in that little circle right there, that half circle. But having all this stuff ready, very important. Now, many choices of resins. The resin that would be appropriate for this is Rest Systems 105, 206 hardener, or 205. 206 is slow. We're using a fast hardener because we want to see what this part's going to look like, and if we're going to have to make it thicker, thinner, or whatever. Now, this will be our original test part. This is the paste that we use to make a little paste to go in that corner. And if we didn't put anything in that corner, we might have an uneven or an air bubble or an air pocket. This makes just like a little bit of a paste. You mix some with the resin. If you look inside here, you'll see this is almost weightless. It's much lighter than talcum powder is, even though you could use talcum powder. Whoops. You certainly don't need a lot of this. In any mold that has a reverse curve, this is a good idea to use some of this. And what you do while you're mixing your resin, one of the tricks you'll see on anybody's video that shows molding techniques is to get that first layer in. And now, because this is such a small part, we could even use a gel coat in there if we wanted to, but just for a test part, this will certainly be fine. I guess a good reason not to use gel coat is we need to scratch the ultimate surface with 80 grit paper to get the Brodak primer to stick when we paint it. But what we're going to do is send this original part up to Bill so he can make the cowl mount and then whatever, and tell us if it fits. If it fits perfectly, if it fits almost perfectly, or if he's got to change it in some way. You can pretty much see I'm just making this. Now, making this paste, and what you want to do is you just get this to the consistency like it was warm peanut butter. Just about like that. So it's fixotropic, meaning it doesn't drip off the brush. Too thick is unnecessary too. Get it painted right in the corner. Now what I also do with the little bit that's left, it's going to have a tendency to, see what I'm doing is just making a paste. In fact, on a part this small, we could put it all around the whole edge. We put it on the whole part, in fact, to show you what some of the possibilities are. And when we pull a part out of here and we see where it's going to be defective, then we can take appropriate steps to make the next one better, or a little thicker, a little thinner. A part that comes out of a mold like this will always, and I mean always, be lighter than, and I've done the test many times, than an equivalent wood part. It also allows, because it's thinner, it allows more air to circulate around the motor, the parts that really matter. Now in a case, just think of this, Miss Ashley, here's a perfect example. Because we have the thinness of the carbon parts, what it allows us to get more air around the motor and the tune pipe and whatever. But if that were wood, we're on the edge of burning off the paint off the carbon parts now because they're real thin. I mean, they're real close to the pipe. If that was a wood part that close to the pipe, it would already have burned off, and we'd have, and it actually did that. If you go back to the I-beam Spitfire, I had a wood bottom piece, and if I remember right, right at the point Miss Ashley the paint had deteriorated, and keep in mind that paint had deteriorated over the course of 2 years, or maybe 2.5 years, so it isn't like it deteriorates right away, but you want to have all the odds stacked in your favor if possible. Now the idea is to get this piece wet, get this corner nice, if possible, and when you put the second layer in, not to have to put a lot of extra resin. Let this one be the one to soak up the resin so that the inside of it you'll see there'll be no big globs of resin, and then you know you've got just about the right mix of resin to cloth. And we'll see when this comes out, we'll have to set the edge on it. So I'm trying, if possible, not to add any extra resin to the part. And that gives me that, when you look at a really well-made part, you can see the weave inside. And that means you don't have puddles of resin in between these, we call them waffles, in between the actual weave of the cloth, the e-glass. Now we could make these parts out of carbon too. We have lightweight carbon.
E-glass is certainly appropriate for this, but if somebody wanted to be real exotic, probably for another $10 in material cost, you could make carbon parts. E-glass is fine. Now the only thing left is we're just going to let this sit till the end of the shop day or till tomorrow. We have some other projects to work on in the shop, but this will give us our original part, and this is the only part that may be a problem pulling up here. And we'll find out. Now a lot of people do this as a final. They do it with gliders especially. They take toilet paper or tissue and just get that last little bit of resin out of there. You see how that leaves a nice finish on the inside? And now what we hope will happen is, if this part fits the way we hope it will, anybody that builds a Strega kit, let's look at this real close. That's what it should look like on the inside. We're just going to have to wait when that cures and see what it looks like. There's little miracles every day. Now this is Mike, I'll do anything to avoid carving a top block Costello or building an A26 wing. Want to buy a tail, by the way? I got a nice one started. So what we did, we've been making, let's just make the story complete here. We've been making top blocks for Stregas every day. So we got a pile of them in the shop here. And Mike has this plane that's called I think it's a Randy Smith Tempest.
A Tempest or Dreadnought or something.
Now what do they supply this kit with when you buy a Randy kit? You get a block of wood or you don't get a shell?
No.
Okay, so let's see if it fits. Why don't you email Randy that shells are available? Maybe he could make his own. Who cares? Wow, that's a perfect fit. It doesn't get any better than that. You're a genius. I got to email Randy right now.
Actually, if I wanted to make it look like the plans, I could cut it off here and put this turtle.
Yeah, you could do a turtle. You could put an Nobler turtle deck if you want to make it even fancier.
Because the one I made, and this is from one of your molds as well.
Yeah, but this is from the Spitfire mold. The Nobler mold is higher. That'll fit even better if you want to keep the look of the plane with the turtle deck. But who cares? Even carving this piece, how many hours does it take you to carve this? Come on.
Are you nuts?
Gotta be nuts. Thinking about that.
Not with a trip to Wendy's, just...
And what does he pay me with? What are those bagels you brought? He brings bagels and he wants top blocks. What a deal.
Bagels and Mike's train.
I'm gonna have him eat a bagel. Yeah, and then we go run the trains for an hour. We lose business and everything here. We both lose business. The phones are ringing and we're running trains. What a day. That's a perfect fit. You ought to tell Randy the next time you see him if he wants some top blocks to put in his kits. Boy, look at that. Who would want to carve when you got that?
This isn't out.
It's not out. I'm telling you, these planes are not that much different. It's perfect. So if you got one of these Randy Smith things, Dreadnoughts or Tempest or whatever this is, it's almost... Now, the worst the scenario, if you wanted to use a smaller spinner, you could laminate some wood inside the block if you want to use an 1 3/4 spinner, but who cares? It fits that way.
Well, let's see. This is the way it really goes on, right?
Yeah, but you could cut there. If you got to cut through this block here, you got to sand some of that off.
Yeah, you always do.
How perfect is that? Come on.
Yeah.
Well, you could slide it back and forth any amount of times.
Fine, yeah. And then you just fit it.
Now I wonder if the cowling, we ought to make it. When you make the cowling for this, I'll make a mold. Did you make the cowl yet? No. Don't carve the holes in it. Get it the right shape and I'll make them. I just made a mold today. Check this mold out here. Mike, this is for Strega. It's probably dry already. It's almost dry. How much work? I got another one, another shell in here, cowls in here, and you're going to be, maybe we could sell 100 of these at a time to Randy Smith. I don't know. I don't know why anybody would want to carve when you got that.
I didn't want to carve in the first.
And even if you like to carve, it's crazy because you can't make it that light. There's no way you can make it that light. I don't care how good of a carver you are.
So even if you cut it in half and use the turtle, we got a mold for the turtle deck too.
I'm gonna use this one for the back, because it came out good.
And just trim this? Okay.
And I'm gonna trim this to where it's gonna be the front part.
Okay.
And the one I made, you can sell to Peabody.
Forget Peabody. He doesn't get one. Now we start today off by getting some clear on the belly pan. And that's one little project now. I guess there's not much left to do on this, other than let the clear dry, buff it out a little bit. And as always, Brodak dope, just you can buff it out the day after you paint it. And we're ready to fly the plane again.
This morning we're going to get to take the first part that we made from the mold, from the Strega molded part. And I'm always careful because I don't want to tear the edges of it up on the first pull. The edges are still pretty delicate. I think you can see we got a really nice part. I wouldn't even say relatively nice, I'd say that's real nice. So we can send this now up to Bill Hummel. Bill Hummel will then tell us if this needs to be made a little stronger, a little thinner, a little whatever. But this part is ready to go. And now with the mold, again, just using mold release, every time that'll kind of ensure that we'll get hundreds and hundreds of parts if we need them. And if we don't, well, you never know what's going to be something that people want. But I do know that every time somebody looks at a square block of wood and has to carve that shape and do all, and then how to make it that thin, I know these will be worthwhile. These will be something worth having in the future. And especially considering how many of these Brodak kits have been, these Brodak Strega kits look like they're going to set the world on fire. Then with a scissor, get most of the extra cloth off. I can really carefully bring this down. It's always good to do the last little bit by hand anyway. You can see when you get to the end, it just tears it right off. Little bit I'll do with a sanding block. I can have better control over it. Now that last little edge, of course this is going to ultimately get glued to a piece of 64th plywood so we have an edge, but I'd still like to send it to Bill or to the customer with a relatively nice edge, and I can just dress off that edge as best I can. So once we have that edge pretty much the way we want it, I want the grain, the primary grain in the 64th plywood to be going in that direction. And I can just press this in place. This is a place where you can use up some scrap if you have it. This gives a nice lip or a nice edge or whatever you want, however you want to define it. And just let that sit till it kicks off. It's dry, we could trim everything but the last little bit, and I'll do the last little bit, of course, with a sanding block. I just think when I'm doing one of these operations, starting with that big block of square wood and thinking, oh God, here we go, another Saturday down the drain. I just think this is a real big
There's plus factor when you're building. Now that last little bit I'll dress off with a sanding block. But that'll hold us in position, and then we'll trim this back according to how you want the motor to go in there. I think Bill has a Jet 65, but I'm not sure.
Now it's also nice if you can put a 64th edge on the edge of the fuselage too, and then adjust the fit accordingly. I always like that last little bit to do with a sanding block. I just can control it better. Since we're going to have to scuff the whole part up, no point worrying if we're going to hit the edge. Now the last little bit is the trimming of the plywood, and I really don't want to do that because I don't know what Bill has in mind in terms of cowl openings. But I'd sketch just roughly, and this is not a real critical thing, so that he has a lip. This is kind of a reinforcing lip edge. And once that's trimmed, we make so many different cowls, and we make the little Strega 40 cowl and the Cardinal cowls and Nobler cowls and P40 cowls. And we always have some of these in stock, in inventory. We got to add one to our list, and one of the things I want to do, and every time we can expand this list to include other planes, and I hope Mike Costello will get that Randy Smith design, we can add that to our list of stuff that we're able to make for people. And by the way, I always send out a list of what do's and don'ts, how to finish, always a set of instructions with each composite part, how to paint it, how to do the final fits, and in the worst scenario, people can just buy the video. The videos for any of the planes that have composite parts show that in detail. Might be too long or redundant to show here, but this is ready to go up to Bill Hummel. As soon as we get feedback from him that it's a good part and that it fits well, we'll be putting those out on the internet for sale. On today's mail from our good friend Gary McClellan, who you've seen him with his big propane-powered jet on a couple previous videos back. Gary was at Reno and he picked me up a bunch of paraphernalia. This is the Reno Gazette. Guess what's on the front page of the paper? Not model railroading, by the way. If anybody would like to read this or just hang on to it, check it out. I'll be glad to loan it to them, but I
have a little collection of Reno-related stuff myself, and obviously we'll add this to the collection. Shows the pylon location for anybody. Well, I don't know who the first one is that ever built a Reno air racer, and it's irrelevant, but the Red Baron goes back to, 87, 88, 89, and I think it's a whole new, well, every year there are a few, Kent Ticers in particular, and now with all the Stragas. What makes it exciting, it's a whole new group of airplanes, at least something that we didn't have before. Now here's the other, check this out. You sent two papers. Gary, you're okay. Dago Red tops 500 miles an hour. Now Kent Ticer has taken a Strega kit, and he's going to turn it into Dago Red for next year with a Rojet 65. That ought to be a pretty exciting project. And as if that wasn't enough, I got another collector item here. Let me take this out. Anyway, this is the program that you can buy when I haven't been at the Reno Air Races. How cool is that? Paul Walker's plane's on one similar to it anyway. Maybe there's two of them, I don't know. Very nice. It's got all the little things you really, when you want to do a Reno air racer, you need some documentation because these paint jobs tend to be very unique. Sea Fury with a 5-blade. Anyway, if anybody really is interested, and I know we have at least 3 or 4 people that are building Mustang type planes now, anybody would love to borrow this, or Danny Banjock I know would love to borrow it, Zambelli. Rich Jacobone's talked about building another Strega, even though I want him to build a Stupa with a bent wing. Reno Museum. Now, you got to keep in mind, Karen's going to be retiring in 2 years, less than 2 years. And one of my goals is, since they don't make Skyfire videos anymore, I haven't been able to buy them. If anybody knows where to buy them, I'll buy them. The thing that's different is, I want to go out to Reno and shoot my own video. And I know we'll get some interviews with people. I have my own ways of making that happen. Look at the leading edge slats on that design. A Firefly. Anyway, this is a great book. Gary, my thanks. I sent Gary some videos out. Little token of thanks for including us in. He knows we like Reno air racers. And Gary, maybe a couple of years from now, you'll be sitting in the pits and you'll see Wendy. You'll turn around, look, and you'll see Wendy standing right next to you. Hear that? Now they list each one of the planes, picture and a picture of the pilot. I mean, how cool is that? Just neat stuff. You know, the world is made up of a lot of neat things. It's certainly not limited to control line stunt. The things that interest me in life, control line stunt is certainly one of them. Maybe the primary one, but I don't know. But I certainly do like, I remember riding in an AT6. I even have that on video if anybody wants to see me humiliated. Look at the nose on this. Oh man. A26, look at that. They must know we're building an A26. Nemesis, the world record holder. Some of these are all composite planes, by the way. A lot of these modern planes are composite. There's the man Skip Home, Dago Red, the spinner. I mean, heck, if you're not inspired to build a certain model, something like this might win you over. The Wright brothers, of course, celebrating the 100th year of flight. Lefty Gardner's P-38. The Sea Furies, I know Al Rabe is still working on his Sea Fury. Now here they list all the planes that participated in this year's Reno race. Strega will not be among them. From what I understand, Tiger took the motor out and sold the motor. Maybe he's got to pay his divorce lawyer or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, pictures of all the planes that participated. If you're looking for here's what amounts to be the closest thing to Miss Ashley, number 38. Precious metal. Paul Walker's variant. Miss America. This looks like something that, and it's not a copy, but the paint job, I think, Jerry Phelps used that paint job. See, so you can get ideas for paint jobs even. Look at this, there's a tiger cat, the jet, the paste plane, of course. And there's the winner, there go red. I personally, I'm not a California guy. I don't care for all these flames and making a Mustang look like a Harley is not my thing, but I love that paint job. Paul Winter did that up, not too, and any of them does. Somebody else that came, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, he was at Brodak with a copy of that. I wouldn't write her off that there'll never be a voodoo in my future. Wouldn't want to say that, but and here's the one that Critical Mass, that's the one Al Ravi is modeling right now. So you see there's a whole class of planes that maybe somewhere had their roots way back when. But it doesn't really matter because we're going to keep building them whether people like them or not. It's irrelevant. But that is a great program from Gary McClellan. And like I said, if anybody would really like to share it, borrow it, please just make sure I get it back at some point in the future, or we'll make a loop of who wants to borrow it next and kind of keep the loop going. I know we have 2 people on the line already for this. From Gary McClellan. And as always, thanks for all the efforts he's put into judging and training judges and whatever. A lot of hot hours out in the sun. We'll just put this on here. This is Gary's personal stationery. I think that's pretty cool. To find out where he gets that stationery, I'd like to make my own. But one of these guys that has, you can have these things, I'm sure you can download them and make your own stationery. Very cool. Again, thanks a lot, Gary. We really do enjoy having this stuff. And he's going to use the team trial videos that I've sent him to try to give the team a heads up on something they can use to their advantage. I'm not sure what, if they can or can't, but it's certainly one of the choices they have. Guess what else came in today's mail? We're not going to be able to open this until we have Karen's birthday party later this week. Look at the size of this box. You would think there'd be a Nobler, a fully built Nobler, no less. Anyway, that is Karen's birthday present. Just came today, and for the women in the audience that are looking forward to seeing Karen get her doll, believe me, it'll be on, if not the next tape, one of the future tapes. We are going to be Rosh Hashanah having a celebration. A lot of our family over, and Elliot Scott from England will be joining us, and we will have, if nothing else, a great doll opening. Final thing I may be able to get done today. This has about 3 coats of clear on and 4 coats of, see, I don't even keep track of it. It's got some clear on it anyway. And I want to sand it out with some 1200 sandpaper, get a final coat of clear on this because we really like to fly the plane. Without this piece in place, the plane not only looks a little, not sure it doesn't look a little hokey, but it also changes the trim of the plane some, and we really want to get some flying in this weekend if possible, among other things. So if I can, the fact that amazingly enough, it's not even raining out there now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sand this all down, just a couple little things, and it'll also give me a chance to try this new stuff that we have. That's the stuff that replaces M600 that's sold by Gavin's, and I think it's very similar to Prepsol. But there's a good chance. See, it's always a good idea to do a test on some small part that if this doesn't work out, hey, no problem, we'll just not use it in the future. But if it is a good substitute, then we'll try to find out where we can buy it commercially or where we can get an address for it anyway. But anyway, while we had this sitting outside the other day, it picked up some dust, and it's always good to sand before the final coats are clear. And before we put that last coat of clear, and I want to get this flat and dull. That's the whole secret, is just before you put the last coat or 2 of clear on, get it flat and dull. And considering everything up to this point was done in 1 day, this would then be a 2-day finish. Now, I always try to sand it. The problem, if I do 600, what's going to happen? There'll be scratches in the final part. Because I want to have this as, I'm trying to upgrade the plane. If I didn't care what the paint looked like, why even do the repair? But I want to get the paint in as new condition or like new condition as I can. And I want to also test that material that we have. So I can see how this, the 2 things it does, it cuts. And the real advantage is when you're doing a wood part, because it doesn't soak into the wood, it evaporates quickly. But what we really want to do is get the whole part flat. See the little moon craters? We want to sand until we get as many of those out as possible. Flat and dull. The opportunity here to use a part, an actual part, and with this replacement of M600 seems like it's going to work. I'm not sure it's better, the same yet until I do a whole plane, but it's certainly a doable substitute. And we'll see when we get the final coats of clear on here, if there's any pluses or minuses or what. And it looks like we have some weather out there. We're near the end of the tape, so I'd like to get the clear on this. But before you put the last coat of clear on, I always prefer to use 1200. I'm always tempted to use 500 or 600 just to get the job going. But if you take the time, the 1200, the result will always be you'll be putting one of those concourse props up on your wall. Ole Presler's handiwork. Anyway, once I dry this off, and again, I can look for little spots I might have sanded through, touch them up. But with the whole piece nice and flat, nice and dull, we'll be actually ready for our last coats of clear. The sun, you can see I just have the slightest hint. I didn't want to sand too much more of this off. The reason is I want to buff it, and when I do buff it, I'll buff right through to that. But that's quite enough to get off. We have an amazingly nice day. I'm totally impressed with how nice this day turned out. We're at the end of the tape, and I hope you'll share the tape with your friends. Needless to say, nobody's going to put you in jail for making copies of windy videos. If you're not a subscriber, I hope you'll consider subscribing in the upcoming season as we build the electric plane, the A26. Do some more little things like these repairs, little things that I hope are helpful information. See, what I'm trying to do is get this last coat on relatively dry, and this is a good trick you can use. Just get it tacky. And now what I'll do, I'll go back down the shop, put just a little bit of retarder in this clear, and put the last coat on, and it should just make my buffing just that much easier. Just 10% retarder and the last coat of clear, even though we don't need it. That'll really, really let that last coat lay down nice and flat. Just get it sticky like this first, that's important. Let it tack out and then get that last wet coat on. See, with just that little bit of retarder in there, how nice that last coat lays down. Just about 10% is plenty, even on a day you don't need it for the last coat. I just want to give this one more coat before we end this and put this aside to dry. Once you have a little retarder in that clear, it just lays down. Again, what this does, it minimizes the amount of effort you have to put into buffing it out. And we'll wait a week or so to buff it out. We don't need a rush. Working with Rodak dope is so nice. Once you've worked with it, it's hard not to appreciate how nice it lays down. That is, just thinking a couple days ago, this was all beaten up and broken cowl mount and everything. I think that's a fine repair. I just keep an eye on it as the paint tacks up. And I really don't want to have it in the sun. The shade would be a better spot. Just let it dry slow. The slower it dries, the less work there's going to be buffing it out. And in the time between now and the time we buff it out, it'll still look pretty nice. It actually doesn't look too bad right now. We'll just keep it in the shade for an hour or so. And we'll see you on the next tape. So right at the end of this tape, I really hope you've enjoyed it and gotten some good ideas.
Sugar is sweet, my love. Good luck, may God bless you. Someday some boy will write in her book to write. Sugar is sweet, my love, but not as sweet as you.